Hey there, I'm Sarah A. Chrisman, the author of The Tales of Chetzemoka, and I'm here today with the Calico Club to discuss Wheels and Whims, an 1884 book about cycling, written by Florine Thayer McCray. Wheels and Whims is a story about four lady tricyclists who go out to seek an adventure together on their wheels. That's right, Artemis.
This story was written in the 1880s when high wheels reigned supreme. Athletic young men like Marjorie's fiancé in the story rode high wheel or ordinary bicycles, while women rode high wheel tricycles. Even Queen Victoria herself owned not just one, but two high-wheel tricycles. Now, I should point out that there were different makes and models of both bicycles and tricycles at the time, and they all looked a little different. The trikes the ladies are riding in Wheels and Whims are Victor brand tricycles and had two big wheels. The rider sat in the middle.
I liked it too, Bastet. It's right in chapter 12.
When Philip on his horse has just raced Mahala on her tricycle going downhill. Of course, downhill on an 85-pound tricycle means all she has to do is put her feet up on the coasting pegs and then just glide downhill. Of course she wins. Dismayed at being beaten, Philip tells Mahala, "You certainly were the victor this time, but..." In response, she tells him, "Beg pardon, not I, but my machine is the victor."
That's a very good point, Diana.
There are a lot of tropes in this story which were such standard fare in Victorian cycling literature that they were virtually requisite. The race against a horse that we just discussed is a classic. Admittedly, it was usually a case of a bicycle versus a horse. Since the tricycles weighed so much more than the bicycles, a victory of a tricycle over a horse would have been considerably harder to pull off. But the book's author does a brilliant job of setting it up really well, with that trick about the tricyclist coasting downhill, which is virtually the only way you can beat a horse on a tricycle, a high-wheel tricycle at least.
That's exactly right, Bastet.
That's why by the time my style of trike was invented, the manufacturer had worked out a way to make a trike with just one big wheel instead of two.
definitely. In the first place, they were a lot more stable. Actually, besides being the vehicle of choice for women, some of the older men preferred tricycles too, because they were more stable.
Also, on a tricycle, the rider sits a lot closer to the ground. This made the trikes much better for women because it meant people couldn't look up their skirts. And while we're on the subject of skirts, I should point out that a major difference between the high-wheel bicycles of the 1880s and the more modern-looking safety or dwarf bikes, as they were called, of the 1890s. On a high-wheel bike, the rider is seated directly over that great big wheel. A skirt would obviously get caught in the spokes, and the configuration of the machine and where the wheel is relative to the frame means there's really no good way to enclose that big main wheel. Now, on a safety bike, the rider is sitting between the wheels, fore and aft. That's an important difference. Now, depending on the make and model of the safety bike, the rider is usually seated over the very front edge of the rear wheel. When safety bikes got really popular in the 1890s, it only took a few things to make them skirt compatible. One is a rear fender, which is a good idea anyways, as anyone who's ridden in the rain can tell you. And holes drilled into this rear fender allowed for a skirt guard made of string to be laced in. And a similar combination kept a lady's skirt out of her chain. Incidentally, when Gabriel and I recently saw a museum exhibit of women's sportswear, he noticed that the 1890s bike on display had the appropriate holes drilled in the fender and chain surround, but whoever had set up the display neglected to thread in the string that would have given these purpose.
All right, fair enough. So just like Diana said, I'll run through just a few more tropes from cycling literature that are in this book. They're great ones. Besides the story of the bicycle, or in this case the tricycle, outracing a horse, there are a few others. Absolute standards in cycling literature.
Honestly, most of them are still tropes in cycling literature today because they're universal cycling themes, and I would even go farther and say they're universal human themes that appeal to all of us because we've all been there. There's the lure of the open road and fresh air and hearty appetites. There's the kindness, and sometimes not so kindness, of strangers, and conflicts with animals of various sorts, especially dogs. And of course, let us by no means forget romance when an attractive member of the opposite sex is met along the way.
Thank you for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a nice thumbs up, and remember to tell your friends about my books and about the Calico Club and the antique books that we read here. Happy reading!